Dardanelle isn't more than a place, and yes, it certainly is a place. It's a close-knit, small community, and you do think about people just like you would your own family. A enjoyable place to live, it really is. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You heard from Tom this morning?
No, I'll probably hear from him around noon. I think he's supposed to come in. I know he'll be here for the game tonight because he wouldn't want to miss homecoming game.
And a good morning, everyone. Once again, we get together for some coffee and conversation here on the Spotlight program at River Talk 980 AM and 97.1 FM. I know some of the coffee shops, some of the local churches where people get together, Tom Cotton is on their mind.
I think Tom is very connected to Dardanelle. He's a small town boy, and he'll always have roots here, just like I did and ones before me. But he's had a lot of rewards, I think, from living on the farm because he knows that there's a responsibility there to take care of your animals, take care of the land.
Always glad to welcome Tom Cotton back to the Arkansas River Valley. It's good to see him.
Well, it's always great to be home. Home for me is my own bed over in Dardanelle.
Tom and Anna live on 2nd Street there in Dardanelle.
My dad grew up in Dardanelle, where we live now. A home where I played as a little boy and where he played as a little boy over 50 years ago. Dardanelle helped make me what I am, whether it's my parents, my family there, the teachers and coaches I had growing up. Small community, families are multi-generational in Dardanelle like mine. Hardworking folks, farmers, ranchers.
Dardanelle is a community where people really care about each other.
You have the best people in the world. I mean, I love the people. Tom represents all of them. Just good people.
It helped teach me the life lessons that I carried with me, not just to Congress, but well before that, to school, and then importantly, into the Army.
You left Dardanelle some time ago, but you left it for a good reason.
When Tom joined the Army, I was very scared. Of course, I'd been through Vietnam, the Vietnam era when Lynn was in the Army.
I remember talking to him all day long and actually tried to talk him out of it. At the end of the day, Tom told me, and I've said this before, he said, "Dad, I love my country and I want to serve." And I couldn't compete with that, so I said, "Well, you need to serve, man."
My decision to join the Army really started on September 11th, 2001 with the 9/11 attacks. I was sitting in class in law school and walked out to hear that planes had hit the World Trade Centers and then the Pentagon, and ultimately those towers collapsed. And from that day forward, I wanted to serve. So after a couple of years working, repaying my loans, I left my law practice, walked into a recruiting station and said, I want to be an infantry officer, I want to be an Army Ranger, and I want to go fight in Iraq or Afghanistan.
It was very unexpected for me to meet someone who had not only graduated law school, but practiced law, and then gave it all up so that he could join the Army. And not only join the Army, but Tom Cotton chose to join the infantry. So I was really impressed with that, and I was very surprised to see that, in fact. The training we got at Fort Benning was excellent, the world's best, and prepared us to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. During his military training, he showed a lot of perseverance, a lot of determination. With very little experience, he became our company commander and officer candidate school with 180 soldiers. A lot of those soldiers with over 10 years of military experience, and Tom did a great job. I was exhausted. I needed a break, and Tom just kept on going. I worked pretty aggressively to move right through basic training, officer candidate school, infantry training, ranger school, and airborne school, so I could get downrange and take charge of a platoon. Tom was in a hurry in the military to get the job done. And every time he jumped at it and was aggressive at taking on a new challenge, he succeeded. But I was very eager to complete my training and get overseas. I joined the Army not to train at Fort Benning, but to go fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. In Iraq, I got to be a platoon leader, 101st Airborne, and we were out conducting combat patrols every day in the streets of Baghdad. He chose to stay in the Army beyond his minimum commitment so he could go to Afghanistan and contribute to the fight there.
I first met Tom in Afghanistan, 2008. He and I were at Fob Medalam, that's in Logman Province in Afghanistan. He was the operations officer for a reconstruction team, and I was the executive officer / battle captain. To be involved in a military campaign, a combat zone, that's something that a lot of congressmen don't have. They don't have that type of insight that Tom has.
The Armed Forces of the United States is a great can-do organization. No matter what the mission is, no matter whether you're trained for it or not, at the end, everyone pulls together and they focus on accomplishing the mission, no matter what it takes to get it done.
The military was a great experience for Tom. It was a broadening experience, and it really was a great precursor for him to move into the political realm and to do the best that he can do to improve our life here in the United States.
When you've dodged real bullets from Al-Qaeda, you don't worry so much about metaphorical bullets during a political campaign.
Tom wants to be part of something larger, and that's why he's doing it. He sees a larger mission, and he wants to be part of that mission.
It drives home just how important that war was, but also drives home how important politics can be.
To have someone from a rural background go to an Ivy League school, and then when their country goes to war, to leave a very lucrative career and fight in the Army and to do his duty for several years, that's a very unusual sort of thing, and it's something you really haven't seen in large part since probably the soldiers that fought in World War II.
I think that speaks volumes of the type of character that Tom Cotton has.
The support we received while Tom was deployed was unbelievable.
When I was overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan, Dardanelle really supported me a lot, whether it was the school system where my mom worked, or my church, or just old buddies of mine sending letters, sending care packages, and those not just for me, but for my soldiers as well.
During the second deployment, we had a tree out in front of my school, and a friend of mine said, "I think we need to put a yellow ribbon on that tree for Tom." That was in November, right after he'd gone to Afghanistan. We put this big yellow ribbon on that tree on Veterans Day, and it stayed there until he came home. And in fact, he helped me take it down.
I'm just very blessed to live in a community that is so rich and so strong.
Well, actually, my great-grandfather bought a farm that's about 5 miles outside of Dardanelle that I still farm that, but his dad actually helped him, which would have been my great-great-grandfather, and it just went on down from generations, down to my grandfather, to my father, and then my uncle was involved, and I became involved. And of course, now Tom helps me when he can be here. When I walk out on the farm sometimes, that I put a footprint there that maybe my great-grandfather or my great-great-grandfather had a footprint there too. It means a lot to me.
Yes, sir.
Can I get, is it called Crossroads or something like that?
Yes, sir.
Let me have about 200 pounds of that.
Lynn? Yes, thank you very much, my wife.
Hello,
I'm
Lynn.
not, oh, I know who you are, though, sure.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, I know your grandkids, how smart they are and everything.
Oh, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Where is Tom today?
He's going to be here in just a little bit. I think around noon, we're going to try to have lunch together.
I think he's doing a great job. I really mean that.
Well, thank you.
Really does.
I appreciate you saying that.
I almost wish I'd raised him.
It's hard for me to keep up with him, but I do know that he's supposed to be here. We're having a football game over Dardanelle tonight for our homecoming. He's supposed to be here for that.
Good. Important stuff. We need to be here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sports is very big in Dardanelle. Like I say, on Friday night, that's the place to be.
On game days, everybody wears their game day t-shirts to school and around the community.
I get to announce the football games at home.
As long as we've been doing this, looks like we'd have moved up into college by now, doesn't it? You think maybe we've got far as we're going to go?
We have one of the prettiest football fields and press boxes where you can oversee the town.
Sun setting behind Mount Nebo.
It's really pretty.
It's a lot of fun to be back, especially whenever you get a chance to see your old classmates, some of whom still live here, some of whom have moved to other places in the state and come back for homecoming. It's always good to reunite and see what they've done in their lives.
Game night's about everybody.
If you came to a game on Friday night, you would see what the community's like.
I do think our home here in Dardanelle, here in Arkansas, is particularly special. You know, we're a small state full of small communities. People grew up just like I did, and there's nothing like being back in your homes and getting back to your roots, reminding yourself of where you came from and what made you who you are.
Washington would benefit to have more of Dardanelle hometown values, and I believe that Tom is the kind of person who can take those values to Washington.
so many people that look to the past and they say, well, I think America's best days are behind us. And I know you don't feel that's the case.
Absolutely not. I think our best days are still ahead of us. Now, that takes work on our part. Every generation behind us, though, has worked to ensure that America's best days will be ahead of us, sometimes making the tough choices that are necessary to get our economy going again, to get America and Arkansas back to work, to ensure that a future is as bright, as prosperous, as secure as our past has been. We can do that, but it's going to take a change in Washington.
It's time that we said enough. Arkansans deserve a senator who will stand with them and stand up to Barack Obama.
Well, I think a lot of the problems with our economy originate in Washington. Not just that we're taxing too much and spending too much, which we clearly are, but also that we're regulating too much. Obama's bureaucracies keep turning out new regulations that make it harder and harder for businesses to survive. Certainly make it harder for them to grow and hire more workers or expand a factory line or add another shift or increase the number of people they have working at any given time. That's particularly true in a place like Arkansas where so much of our economy depends on small businesses that don't have armies of lobbyists and lawyers and accountants and other professionals to help deal with that blizzard of regulations. We need a Washington that is not getting on the backs of those businesses, but actually standing by their sides. We've got to balance our budget. We've got to live within our means, or preferably below our means, like I learned growing up on the farm in Dardanelle, if we're going to pass on an America that's as strong and free and prosperous as the country we received from our parents and our grandparents. Serious times demand serious leaders. Could there be a more serious time? Look at what's happening around the world. Look at the people struggling in Arkansas to make ends meet. We're in a gravely serious time, and it's time that we took it seriously and that we begin to turn our country around, both at home and our standing in the world. In Washington, you can go along to get along very easily. You can work with your party, you can work with the president, the lobbyists, and all the special interests who are heavily invested in the status quo. Or you can stand up and do what's right for Arkansans. Stop taking so much money away from Arkansas's working families and giving it away to special interests in Washington, D.C. That requires you to have the courage to stand up to the status quo and maybe rock the boat every now and then if you're going to do what's right by Arkansans. I haven't been a go-along, get-along kind of guy in Washington. Not in the House, I won't be that in the Senate. But you know, I've always gone about my life a little bit differently than most people. I left my law practice to join the Army because I thought it was the right thing to do in a time of war. And sometimes in the House of Representatives, I've had to cast some lonely votes. But I always do what I think is right for Arkansas, even if that means standing up to my own party or standing up to the status quo in Washington.
This is not about Democrats and Republicans. This is about you and who stands with you.
I'm always going to put the people I serve, the people of Arkansas, ahead of my party because they're my real bosses. Not a party boss in Washington, D.C., but the people of Arkansas.
I will do the right thing, even when it's the hard thing. And I will never, ever forget how I was raised or where I come from.
Dardanelle boys always come home. They always want to come home.
He won't forget where he came from at all. I can assure you of that. He'll always be a small town boy, but
Or he'll have to answer to Mom.
I'm Tom Cotton. I approve this message. I'd be honored to have your support.
Early voting has begun. Log on to votetomcotton.com to find early voting hours and locations near you. Vote early until November 3rd, or vote at your regular precinct November 4th. Make your vote count. You can watch this program again or forward it to your friends by logging on to tomcotton.com.